Assalamu alaikum. This is Shauruk Mujumdar welcoming you to the English news from Btv Chattogram. Let's begin with the top stories. SSC 2027 to begin on January 7th while HSC on June 6th, announced Education Minister. Commerce Minister urges China to increase investment in Bangladesh. Former Minister Dipu Moni, journalists Muzammil Babu and Farzana Rupa shown arrested in Shapla Chottor murder case. Government working to develop education and culture under Prime Minister Tariq Rahman's directions, said Cultural Affairs Minister. US President Trump meets Chinese President Xi Jinping as US-China talks begin with major diplomatic issues. And Lionel Messi scored a hat-trick as Inter Miami beat Cincinnati by 5-3 in Major League Soccer. Viewers, those were the top stories. Now moving on to the details. The Secondary School Certificate SSC and equivalent examinations of 2027 will begin on 7th of January and conclude on 6th of February 2027, while the Higher Secondary Certificate HSC and equivalent examinations will start on 6th of June 2027 and continue until 13th of July. Education Minister A&M Ahsanul Haq Milan announced the dates at a press briefing held at the Secretariat. The minister said that in order to save students academic time, the long-term goal is to gradually shift both SSC and HSC examinations to December. Earlier, in a view exchange at the Secretariat, students and stakeholders had said that moving the 2027 SSC and HSC examinations to December suddenly would not be appropriate. In response, Education Minister announced this adjusted January and June schedule. The minister said the examination routines have already been finalized and will be published soon.
SSC শুরু করব জানুয়ারি 7 তারিখ 2027 এবং তাদের পরীক্ষা শেষ হবে 6 ফেব্রুয়ারি 2027 আর এইচএসসি আমরা শুরু করব 6 জুন শেষ হবে 13 জুলাই 2027 এটা হচ্ছে আমাদের মন্ত্রণালয় থেকে আমরা বোর্ড এবং স্টেকহোল্ডারদের সাথে আলোচনা করে এই সিদ্ধান্ত নিয়েছি.
Mentioning that China as Bangladesh's largest trading partner, Commerce Minister Khondokor Abdul Muqtadir urged China to increase investment in Bangladesh. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the Bangladesh-China Green Textile Expo at ICCB in the capital, the minister said stronger Chinese investment could help reduce the trade gap between the two countries. Jointly organized by Sever International Limited and the Chinese Enterprises Association in Bangladesh, the 3 days expo aims to promote environmentally friendly development in Bangladesh's garment sector and strengthen bilateral trade ties. Praising China's advanced technology, the Commerce Minister said many sectors in China are now operated through AI and modern technologies. He sought Chinese technological support for Bangladesh's jute industry. Khondokor Abdul Muqtadir noted that Bangladesh's exports to China remain much lower than its imports from the country and said greater Chinese investment could help improve export trade. He also expressed hope for continued cooperation from the Chinese embassy. Chinese ambassador in Dhaka, Yao Wen, highlighted plans for new trade agreements between the two countries and assured China's support in expanding bilateral trade relations with Bangladesh's new government. The expo brought together leading textile and garment companies, investors, technology experts, and business representatives from both Bangladesh and China. Local entrepreneurs at the event also called for expanding export opportunities to the Chinese market. The International Crimes Tribunal has kept the verdict pending in the case against Jashid President Hassanul Haq Inu over crimes against humanity related to the killing of 6 people in Kushtia during the July mass uprising following the conclusion of closing arguments. Today, Tribunal 2, led by Justice Nazrul Islam Chaudhary, issued the order after hearing the final arguments. In the case, the prosecution demanded appropriate punishment against Hassanul Haq Inu on 7 charges framed against him. Meanwhile, in the Shapla Chattogram massacre case, the tribunal ordered former Minister Dr. Dipu Moni, journalists Muzammal Babu and Farzana Rupa to be shown arrested and sent to jail. Tribunal 1, led by Justice Ghulam Murtuja Mujumdar, issued the order today. At the same time, the tribunal directed them to appear again on the previously scheduled date of June 7th. Earlier in the morning, former Minister Dr. Dipu Moni, journalists Muzammal Babu and Farzana Rupa were produced before the International Crimes Tribunal in connection with the case. According to the prosecution of the International Crimes Tribunal, following the Shapla Chattogram killings, then Ekattur TV journalist Farzana Rupa allegedly attempted to divert attention from the truth through the program Shomikaran. The prosecution claims that besides her, former Foreign Minister Dr. Dipu Moni and then Managing Director of Ekattur TV, Muzammal Babu, were also involved in the planned effort. The investigation agency has so far confirmed that 58 people were killed in 4 districts, including Dhaka, in connection with the Shapla Chattogram incident. A total of 30 people, including ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, have been accused in the case. 6 people, including former State Minister Shamsul Haq Tuku, former Inspector General of Police Shahidul Haq and former military officer Jiaul Ahsan, had already been arrested in the case earlier. On the other hand, Tribunal 2 has set June 4th as a next date for witness testimony in the crimes against humanity case against former DMP Commissioner Habibur Rahman and 4 others over the killings of 2 people, including the shooting of Amir Hussain while he was hanging from a cornice in Rampura during the July mass uprising. Voting for the second and final day of the Supreme Court Bar Association election has been conducted. The final day's voting began at 10 a.m. at the Bar Association auditorium. After a 1-hour lunch break, voting continued until 5 p.m. The election was held for 14 posts in the 1-year term executive committee, including the positions of president and secretary. A total of 40 candidates are contesting in the election, while 11,097 lawyers are eligible to vote. On the first day of voting yesterday, 1,771 votes were cast, representing 15.96% of the total votes. In this year's election, BNP-backed Blue Panel candidate Barrister A.M. Mahabubuddin Khokon is contesting for president, while Muhammad Ali is contesting for secretary. From the Jamaat-e-Islami-backed Green Panel, Abdul Batin is contesting for president and AKM Rizal Karim Khandakar for secretary. The Buddhist Cultural Festival, organized for the first time at the TSC by the Department of Pali and Buddhist Studies and the Center for Buddhist Heritage and Culture, featured various elements of Buddhist heritage, art and harmony. The event began with captivating cultural dance performances. The festival was inaugurated by Cultural Affairs Minister Nitai Roy Chaudhary and Chittagong Hill Tracts Affairs Minister Dipen Dewan. In his speech as chief guest, Cultural Affairs Minister Nitai Roy Chaudhary said that the current government is working to advance education and culture under the leadership of Prime Minister Tariq Rahman. He further said that although the sovereignty of the country belongs to the people, according to the Constitution, people's voting rights had been taken away in the past. However, through the 2026 election, people regained that sovereignty. As a special guest, Chittagong Hill Tracts Affairs Minister Dipen Dewan said that if people follow the principles and practices of Buddhism, violence and hatred would disappear from society and peace would be established in the country. Dr. ABM Obaidul Islam and Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Muhammad Abul Kalam Sharkar, also spoke at the event. Senior officials of the Buddhist Welfare Trust and university students were present on the occasion. To mark the festival, stalls featuring jewelry, food, and traditional clothing of hill communities were set up around the TSC premises. Visitors enjoyed exploring the various attractions after the program concluded. The Bangladesh Navy launched a major drive from the Potanga end of Kornafulu River into the Bay of Bengal to prevent the illegal catching of Jatka. Naval forces deploy warships, patrol helicopters, and speedboats in major maritime operation. The Navy said that 3 warships of the Navy are deployed in the Bay of Bengal, and in addition to conducting regular patrol activities through ships, boats and craft, aerial surveillance has been continued through maritime patrol aircraft as needed, so that no domestic or foreign vessel can harvest fish during the prohibited hours. The Navy has continued round-the-clock surveillance on the highest alert to prevent the intrusion of illegal fishermen in the deep sea. The government announced 58-day ban on all types of fishing will continue until June 11th. The Navy said that the Navy's coordinated and timely steps to protect national fisheries have significantly reduced the trend of illegal net use and killing of Jatka in coastal areas. In recognition of the conservation of Mother Hilsa and the development of the country's overall fisheries, the Bangladesh Navy has already won the National Fisheries Award 2025. Now international news. President Xi Jinping calls for China and the U.S. to be partners, not rivals, ahead of high-stakes talks with his U.S. counterpart in Beijing. In response, President Trump describes Xi as a great leader and says the leadership between the superpowers will be better than ever before. Xi began the summit by telling Trump that stable relations between the world's 2 biggest economies benefit the entire world. When we cooperate, both sides benefit. When we confront each other, both sides suffer, he said in a brief remarks that were open to media. She said negotiations between U.S. and Chinese economic and trade teams in South Korea on Wednesday had reached overall balanced and positive outcomes, according to a readout by China's foreign ministry. The negotiations had aimed to maintain the trade truce struck between Trump and Xi last October and establish mechanisms to support future trade and investment. She also broached the subject of Taiwan, the democratically governed island claimed by China and armed by the United States. The Chinese leader told Trump that Taiwan was the most important issue in U.S.-China relations, and if handled poorly, could lead to conflict and an extremely dangerous situation. According to the Chinese readout of the talks, which concluded after a little over 2 hours. The leaders also agreed to expand cooperation in trade and agriculture and exchanged views on the situations in the Middle East, Ukraine, and the Korean Peninsula. U.S. President Donald Trump discussed the war in Iran with Chinese President Xi Jinping during a high-stakes summit between the 2 countries in Beijing. Ahead of the summit, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the United States wanted China to take a more active role towards persuading Iran in ending the months-long war. We hope to convince them to play a more active role in getting Iran to walk away from what they are doing now and trying to do now in the Persian Gulf, Rubio told Fox News in an interview. Shortly after Rubio's comments, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was welcomed by India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar at the BRICS summit in New Delhi. Iran's Foreign Minister Araghchi has denounced the U.S. and Israel for expansionism and warmongering, saying instability in the Middle East is a lose-lose proposition for all sides, including the aggressors. In southern Lebanon, Israeli strikes have killed 22 people in the past 24 hours, including 8 children. Lebanon's Ministry of Health said the total death toll has now exceeded 400 since President Donald Trump announced a ceasefire. In retaliation, Hezbollah claimed to have attacked Israeli positions with drones, rockets, and mortars. Meanwhile, Israeli and Lebanese officials are due to hold direct talks today on a permanent peace agreement to end the war. However, Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem rejected the initiative, saying his organization will not withdraw from the battlefields.